Further debate, and I recognize the member for Guelph.
Speaker, it's always an honor to rise today and debate Bill 162, the Get It Done Wrong Act. And the reason why it's getting it done wrong is that it's imposing expensive, unaffordable sprawl onto communities across this province. Specifically, Schedule 3 imposes expensive sprawl on regions. And the last thing we need when we're in the middle of an unprecedented housing crisis in the province of Ontario is a new law that supports building the wrong types of housing in the wrong places at the wrong expensive prices, instead of actually building homes that people can afford in the communities they know and love. This bill flip-flops on a flip-flop on a flip-flop around changing official plans and is especially destructive for Waterloo and Halton regions. And I want to focus on Waterloo region in particular and give a quick shout out to my colleague from Kitchener Centre who put forward a number of amendments that unfortunately were voted down in committee around protecting the good, smart planning for building homes that people could afford in Waterloo region. This bill threatens 6,400 acres of land in Waterloo region alone. Threatens a plan that the region spent 5 years and millions of dollars working with a variety of stakeholders and especially local farmers. Talk to somebody like Mark Reusser, the head of Waterloo region OFA, who says that the changes to these urban boundaries in Waterloo region are simply not sustainable and actually threaten agriculture in the region. This plan was a world-class plan, recognized as a way for Waterloo region to meet their housing supply targets while protecting some of the best farmland and definitely the best farmers in the world, while protecting their water recharge areas and protecting the places that people love to spend time in Waterloo region. And all of this at a time when we are losing 319 acres of farmland in this province each and every day at an unsustainable rate that threatens our $50 billion food and farming economy that employs over 800,000 people in this province. Speaker, I want to especially focus in on the way this bill threatens the water recharge areas for Waterloo region. This bill will pave over one of the key areas for water recharge. And when you do that, Speaker, when you develop over water recharge areas, it threatens the amount of water filtering into the local aquifer, reducing it by 50 to 80%. For a community that primarily relies on groundwater for its drinking water, which, by the way, then actually threatens housing in the region. Because the last time I heard, when you build homes, you actually need drinking water for those homes. So why would the government overturn smart regional planning when the region actually already had a plan in place to protect their water recharge area, to protect their farmland, and to meet their housing targets? The government has yet to explain a rationale of why they're doing this, even though the region clearly had a good plan. So this flawed process, to me, Speaker, smells a lot like the Greenbelt scandal. A government more focused on how do we help wealthy, well-connected insider land speculators cash in the case of the Greenbelt, $8.3 billion, which is now under RCMP investigation, instead of actually building homes that ordinary people can afford by legalizing housing, making it easy to build 4 units and 4-story as of right province-wide, making it easy to build 6 to 11-story buildings along major transit and transportation corridors where we already have infrastructure in place. because by imposing sprawl through Schedule 3 of this bill, it's actually cost municipalities 2.5 times more to service low-density sprawl than it does to actually build homes where the infrastructure already exists. And Waterloo Region Planner Kevin Eby clearly has stated that not only has Waterloo Region approved enough land for development, but there's already enough land approved for development in southern Ontario to build 2 million homes. I believe the government's target is 1.5 million, though some are saying we probably need more like 1.8 million. And we already have land approved for 2 million. So why is this government imposing more expensive sprawl on municipalities through the Get It Done Wrong Act? Speaking of sprawl, Speaker, I want to take a moment to talk about Schedule 1 of this bill, which further weakens the environmental assessment process and actually makes it easier for the government to expropriate land from people. And let's talk about, while we're talking about Waterloo, let's talk about the farmers in Wilmot in Waterloo Region. 770 acres of some of the best farmland I've seen being assembled now and possibly expropriated from farmers for a use that we don't know. Again, at a time we're losing 319 acres of farmland each and every day. But we know why, or we suspect why, this government's weakening the environmental assessment process, especially for highways, and making it easier to expropriate land, is because they want to build a highway that's going to pave over 2,000 acres of prime farmland, 400 acres of the Greenbelt, and 200 wetlands, threatening 29 species at risk, so drivers can save 30 seconds to a minute. That highway is called Highway 413. And I want to suggest to the members opposite that they actually spend some time in Peel Region. Go through Caledon, make your way over to Vaughan, and look at one of the fastest growing crops there are signs saying, "Stop Highway 413. Protect our farmland." You know, this bill talks about tolls, but the one highway that's tolled that doesn't talk about in this bill is the 407. We could reduce gridlock now, not 10, 15 years in the future, right now, by paying the tolls for truckers on Highway 407 at a fraction of the cost of building Highway 413, and without the destruction of the local farmland and environment that people love along the route of the highway. In my final minute, Speaker, I just want to take a moment to talk about Schedule 5. Schedule 5 is performative politics at its worst. It's the schedule about the referendum on carbon pricing, because we know that a current government can't tie the hands of a future government. And ironically enough, it was actually this government that brought in carbon tax in Ontario when they ripped up the cap in trade. What this government doesn't talk about when it comes to climate action is that data released last week shows that the province with the fastest growing, the biggest increase in climate pollution is the province of Ontario. The entire country, the province of Ontario. As a matter of fact, the data shows that this government has made zero progress on reducing climate pollution since they took office. Our emissions now are up as high as they were in 2017, despite the costs of the climate crisis. And so, Speaker, this is a government without a plan, and it's actually going to take money out of people's pockets by what they are planning to do. Thank you.
Time for questions. I recognize the member for Nickel Belt.
Speaker, I was very interested. Our caucus had brought forward an opposition day motion focusing on making sure that truck traffic got to use Highway 407 so that we release congestion. You actually were there. You voted in favor of the NDP motion. Could you share with the House how the Conservative looked at that motion and how when we present them with solutions to immediate solutions to problems that needs to be addressed, that they look the other way?
Back to the member for Guelph.
Yeah, I appreciate the member from Nickel Belt's question. So actually, I think I first proposed this 2 years ago to pay the tolls of truckers on the 407. And at that time, part of the rationale was somebody had just landed an airplane on the 407. It was so underutilized. So it seems to make sense to me that why would you build a highway that's exactly the same area, just a little bit north of the 407, and spend $10+ billion on it when you could pay the tolls of truckers for the next 30 years for less than a quarter of that price and actually relieve gridlock right now? That's the most fiscally responsible, environmentally responsible way to benefit our economy and end gridlock.
Further questions? I recognize the member for Hamilton West, Ancaster Dundas.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I want to just ask you, because I can't find a climate plan from this government. Is there one? I think this government has absolutely no policies, no programs that are credible or serious or meet the moment when it comes to the urgency of the climate crisis in this province. I mean, we have the Insurance Bureau talking about the losses that people will be facing in their property. We have forest fire seasons that start earlier and earlier. We have a government that, instead of taking action, has, like you said, this performative bill that makes it look like they're doing anything. Can you point to any climate plan at all that this government has?
Back to the member for Guelph.
Yeah, I appreciate the member from Hamilton's question. Don't take my word for it. I'm obviously a partisan political actor. Take the Auditor General's word for it. The Auditor General said they don't have a credible plan, and now we have data that was released last week that validates exactly what the Auditor General said. Ontario's climate emissions are growing faster than any province in the country. The government has made absolutely zero progress in reducing climate pollution in this province. And you talked about costs. Let's not even talk about future costs for a second. Let's talk about costs from just last year. According to the Insurance Bureau of Canada, climate crisis cost Canadians $3.1 billion in insurable losses. They estimate that uninsurable losses were 3 times that, almost $10 billion in 1 year. That costs every household $720 in this country.
Question? I recognize the member for Nickel Belt.
Thank you to the member. We have all been here during question period where every questions from a Conservative member are about the carbon tax. But they only tell one part of the carbon tax story. They don't tell the part where they are the party that brought the carbon tax to Ontario. We did not have a carbon tax in Ontario before this. The Conservative government brought it to our province. Would you agree with those statements?
Back to the member for a final response.
Yeah, I thank the member for Nickel Belt for the question. The reason we have a carbon tax in the province of Ontario is the Conservative government, when they first were elected in 2018, got rid of the cap and trade program, and that triggered the federal government's backstop on carbon pricing. The other thing the government doesn't talk about when it comes to carbon pricing is that actually 8 out of 10 Ontarians receive more money back in the rebate than they actually pay into the carbon price. And the Ontarians who benefit the most from that rebate are low and middle income Ontarians. So it is true there are some people who do pay more because they pay more in tax than their rebate. Those are the wealthiest people in the province. So they don't have a plan, and the plan they have actually takes money out of our pockets.